Hello, hello. How is everyone doing today? We're live for our weekly training, and I'm super excited about this training because
Today, we're
wow.
live for our weekly training, and I'm super excited.
I am so sorry. How are you all doing? I see that Rada is here, Yara is here, Marjolein is here. How's everyone feeling today? I'm just going to share the link with people in our Facebook group and start speaking about the topic of today, because we're live to speak about 4 types of words that you need to know to master your cues. And I chose this topic for today because I think it's a challenge for most people to form their sentences, to speak with clarity, to speak effectively, and use cues that are easily understood by your students. Use cues that are easy to remember for you as a teacher, but also know synonyms and alternatives which you can use when your students don't understand you straight away, because this happens. What makes sense to you doesn't necessarily make sense to your students too. So we need to know alternatives and synonyms. So let me see who is here with me on Facebook. Write in the comments. Write in the comments if you're here. Obviously, I want to know always. Hello, Claudia. I see Yara has waved too. So nice to see all of you. All right, so let's speak about cueing. Cueing, first of all, is an art, right? It's the art of guiding your students into positions or variations of positions that allow them to experience the asana in a way that's beneficial to them. And we want to do this using as little words as possible, because the more we speak in a yoga class, the more distracted you and your students are. So cueing is an art of guiding your students with as little words as possible, or few words as possible, and still making it very effective. So cueing is communicating clearly and considerately so that you can guide your students in their movement in the present moment. And these cues serve your students as individuals, even when they're in a group, because in a group, you will have different types of cues that work for one person, for the other person, or alternatives, because not every single person has the same experience with practicing yoga. So if you speak too fast, your students will get lost. If you speak too quietly, your students can't hear you and they only focus on trying to hear you. And if you use too many words, students will need to think about what you actually say, what you actually want them to do. And it takes them out of the present moment, out of their practice, being completely focused on what you're saying. And that's all of these things. We don't want that to happen. So cueing too fast, speaking too quietly, or using too many words are 3 mistakes, very common, but pay attention to yourself if maybe this is something that you do too. So to master your cues, simplicity is key. And when you say and what you say and how you say it directly impacts the practice of your students. So it's really important to pay attention to the way that you speak. So this means that your cues offer multiple bits of information, options for physical positioning, and options for exploring the movement spiritually, but also emotionally or mentally, but also your students' mental attitudes towards the practice, towards the asanas that they are practicing, and how these observations of their practice, the way that they speak to themselves or handle these situations, how those observations and realizations can be taken off the mat too in their daily life. Because if something is really challenging, what happens in the brain? What happens in the mind? And how can we use that observation into our daily life too? So what we practice on the mat, we can practice off the mat. All of these things are things that you help your students with through your cues. So for this reason, it's really important that Well, I think it's extremely useful. It's extremely useful that you create your own sets of cues per asana that you regularly teach. And when you teach a new asana, you add it to your list of cues. Because having a list of cues helps you reflect on them to develop them and increase the quality of your teaching. And treating and studying your cues like new vocabulary will bring so much more intention in the way that you cue, in the way that you teach, in the way that you show up, in the way that you guide your students ultimately. So it's essential for a well-rounded yoga practice. However, everyone, welcome. If you're joining us a little bit later, we're speaking about 4 types of words to master your cues. So for those watching on Instagram and on Facebook, I'm in between screens. I just gave a brief explanation of why cueing is important and why it's an art. But mastering your cues in a way that's easily understood, that is effective, that's clear, that's concise, it takes time and practice. And over time, you develop your own voice, you will develop your own teaching style, you explore a variety of different types of cues, such as mindfulness cues, philosophical cues, energetic cues, support cues. All of these types of cues have different formulas, and I teach them all in the English for Yoga Teachers course. This is all we do really in the first module, mastering cues to optimizing your leads and your guidance and help your students experience deeper, well-rounded practices. But all of that starts with a solid foundation of instructional cues. And I'm going to speak about those today. So instructional cues will help you feel very confident and also will be very easy to understand for your students. So they hear it and they straight away act upon it. So instructional cues are active cues. Active cues indicate an action and make your cues doable. Yeah. Too often I hear teachers use passive cues, but in contrast to actionable cues, these passive cues just describe what the body looks like. And I find them personally very, I would say, extremely unuseful. Yeah. If you've been with me for a while, you probably have heard me speak about this before too. And you also know that I'm somewhat strict when it comes to passive cueing. And I think it's really important that as a yoga teacher, and especially if you're teaching in a foreign language, understanding and applying active cues is the very first thing that you need to learn if you teach asana classes. So as an English learner, quick definition of the difference between active and passive cueing. As an English learner, you might have studied passive grammar structures before. When we speak about passive language in yoga, this has a slightly different meaning. Yes, so it's meaning in official English language grammar, and I will teach all of this in the English for Yoga Teachers course too. Don't worry about this right now, but it's a little bit different, the passive language in yoga and passive language in English grammar. But when in the world of yoga, we refer to passive language, often we mean language that does not communicate activity or the agency, control that means, of the subject. So this is much more general than it is in English language grammar. So it can include the grammatical passive voice, but it can also refer to other things. And 2 of these things really mean going to plus a verb, like soon we're going to be in a seated position and you're going to position the legs as you prefer. Going to is for plans, things that you intend to do in the future. So it disengages, it makes your students lose focus on the present moment, right? So they're taken out of the present moment and now focus on something that they're going to do in a moment. So we don't want to use going to plus a verb. Another passive cue in yoga is verb plus ing. So that's the continuous form or the gerund. So bending your knees or lifting your arms up beside your ears, or you're coming to the front of your mat. Verb plus ing is very problematic because it ignores the subject and it just mentions an impersonal activity, or it suggests it's a continuous action with no clear start, with no finish point. So you lose the idea of transitioning from one position to another or doing a movement, lifting the arms up. Instead, we want to say lift the arms up. It's very easy. Once you know it, it's very easy to identify and to hear. But these are things that you want to pay attention to. Yeah, so make your cues actionable at each stage of the practice by using cueing formulas that I also teach in the Teach Yoga and English course and in the English for Yoga Teachers course. Yeah, I teach you all the cueing formulas that you could possibly know of and use in your yoga classes. So these are things that you need to pay attention to. Now that you know, brief introduction. Now that you know that cueing is the art of directing your students into positions or variations that allow them to experience the asana in the way that's most beneficial to them, with as few words as possible, I'm going to teach you the instructional language that you need to, well, the 4 types of words that you need to form instructional cues as active cues, right? So this is according to the very first cueing formula that I teach in all our courses. And I think this is the most beneficial one and the one that you can lead any class with. It really aims at action, transition, or exit, focused on the breath and a direction. All right, so this is the very first cue that you need to know for every class and every asana. So action, transition, or exit, focus on the breath and direction. If you feel like I have no idea what she's speaking about with cueing formulas, check out the English for Yoga Teachers course or the Teach Yoga and English course bundle, because I teach you all about this on the courses. All right, so the cueing formula is breath. If you want to write it down, breath plus the verb plus a body part plus direction is action, transition, or exit. As easy as that sounds. So as you identify here, we've got breath, verb, body part, direction. And I've actually forgotten something. We've got breath, pronoun or article, verb, body part, direction. So we've got 4 types of words here, because the breath literally means inhale or exhale. Yeah, or take an inhalation, take an exhalation. Then we've got the verbs. Verbs are the main part of a sentence, and they are action words that describe what the subject, so the subject in this case is the yogi, what the yogi does. Verbs describe what the yogi does. Common verbs in yoga are lift, open, maybe straighten or lengthen, pull. There's a lot of different verbs in yoga. And the more exact your verbs are, the more exactly they describe the action, the easier it is for your students to follow. For example, move your arm isn't as clear as lift your arm or straighten the arm. Yeah, it's important that you know a variety of verbs and synonyms and alternatives that you can use in the right context, so that you can be very specific, but also change them when your students don't understand you straight away. Yeah, because what makes sense to you doesn't always make sense to your students. Now, if you say lengthen the spine, makes sense to you because you've been practicing yoga for a while and you hear this verb all the time. But if you have a beginner in your yoga class, they might not have heard that before. So what are synonyms of lengthen that you can use? And maybe you want to use synonyms of body parts as well that you can use. I'm going to go to that in a moment. So when you sign up to the English for Yoga Teachers course or the Teach Yoga and English course bundle, you get access to the Yoga Vocabulary Builder. And in this builder, I teach you all the words. I think there's over 100 verbs and synonyms and alternatives that you can use in the context of yoga. So check that out if you're interested in it. All the verbs that you could possibly use in a yoga class. Isn't that great? It's an interactive dictionary. The second part of the sentence, well, actually it's before the verb. So pronouns and articles. A pronoun is a word that we use to refer to someone or something when you do not need to use a noun. So, to be very nerdy about this, in English grammar, there are 7 types of pronouns, and you might have studied them before. We've got them including the demonstrative pronouns, interrogative, relative, and indefinite, possessive, and intensive. Yeah, you don't need to know this right now. The first thing you have to study, and you probably have studied these before, are personal pronouns. So I, you, he, she, it, you, they, and we. You, they, and we. But we need in yoga possessive pronouns. Think of my, your, her, their. Yeah, so think of lift your arm, bend your knee, look at your toes. Now, some teachers ask me, can I use articles instead? Articles are the words a, an, and the, and we put them in front of nouns. I believe personally, and I suggest this always to everyone I teach with, to use your instead, because your is very personal and it really speaks to the practitioner in the present moment. However, if you want to use a, an, or the, I think it can be useful, especially when it comes to using your props. For example, take a block, take a bolster, use your chair or use a chair. Yeah, so it can be interchangeable. It can be preference, your taste, your teaching style. But pronouns and articles are a must to complete the sentence. And really look at possessive pronouns, and especially your, using your, or maybe using articles, a, an, or the. Then body parts, and the body parts are a big thing for many people, because how do we speak about the body? Is it all right to just speak about the arm, or do we need to be more specific and say the forearm? Do we need to be more specific and speak about the bones of the arm? Body parts are, as the name suggests, really refer to the words that describe structures of the body. And it can be very general, like an arm, a finger, or a leg. But it can also be bones, like a femur, or clavicle, or ribs, or the muscles. Maybe it's a deltoid, a biceps, or your quads. Ligaments, joints like your hinge or your ball and socket joints. It can be organs like your liver or the heart and the bladder. You know, you can get as general or specific as you like here. And I think the way that you use or refer to body parts in your practice, in your classes, really depends on your teaching style, and it really depends on your students. But as I said, you can be as specific or as general as you want. But learning body parts and speaking about body parts is key in your cueing. Yeah. So again, if you check out the Yoga Vocabulary Builder, and you get access to the Vocabulary Builder if you sign up to the Teach Yoga and English course or the English for Yoga Teachers course, you will learn all of these categories. All of these categories of body parts, including general muscles, ligaments, joints, tissues, organs, meridians, bones, all of them. Everything is included. Now, including body parts in your cues is important to know what portion of the body to move and pay attention to, or feel, or observe. And for active and instructional cues, knowing how and when to use general body parts is enough. Yeah, so for instructional active cues, General body parts are enough. But later in your teaching, as you develop and start using different types of cues, the more specific you can get, the more focused your class is, the more focused your themes and guidance will be too. Which ultimately means your classes are more valuable and the experience of your students are more profound or well-rounded. So using body parts in the right context is really important. The fourth category of words that you need to know to master your cues, and especially your instructional active cues, are directions and prepositions. So language that indicates directions complete your cues. Too often, I hear yoga teachers say, lift your knee, step your foot, lift your arm. And now using precise verbs can somewhat describe where a body part moves or where the focus is placed. But you want your students to follow you without having them ask themselves, what is this person saying? Where do I have to move it? Maybe they even have to look up to you to see what you're doing, or look at other students in the room to see what they are doing. Whereas if you're teaching on Zoom, they have to look at the screen. You really want to prevent that from happening, to just add direction or prepositions. It's not that complicated. So for that reason, I think ending your cues with very clear directions or prepositions is really incredibly important. So directions and prepositions can sound like up, forward, down, in front of you, the back of your mat, between your hands, etc. There's many different options here. And I keep saying it on repeat, but the more precise you are, the more precise you can be, the better your leads and the more enjoyable the practice will be for your students. Yeah, because that means that they can stay focused. They can really focus on their experience, their movement, their exploration, and don't have to worry so much about what you're saying and how you're helping them. So this type of language of direction and preposition you can also find in the Yoga Vocabulary Builder, and it's something that I focus on in every teaching practice. So on all the courses that I teach, we have weekly teaching practices to optimize our cues, become very confident, but also more precise, more effective, more concise, and cue in the most clear way, the clearest way, with as little words as possible. Yeah, so check that out if you're interested in it. Now, in our courses, I help you write cues according to your personal style and your teaching voice. And some of you here on Instagram or Facebook, you will have taken our quiz before. What's your style of teaching voice? And you might recognize yourself in the spiritual awakener, the storyteller, the sensory explorer, emotional healer, instructional mentor, technical master, and the motivational leader. So you might recognize yourself in one of these 7. The types of cues that I teach you in the courses match these styles. Yeah, so it's normal that you're naturally drawn to one of these styles, and that you have a combination of styles. But I believe that a well-rounded yoga class actually includes a little bit of everything. So that's why I find it important that you look at all the types of cues, so metaphorical, energetic, spiritual, philosophical, alignment cues, all the different types of cues, so that you can create well-rounded experiences. Yeah, so remember that. But first, foundational cues, active cues, instructional cues that you can remember easily, that for your students are easy to understand, that are concise, effective, clear, and as few words as possible. So what you learned today is that understanding or accepting that cueing is an art. Cueing is an art. And to become confident and effective at it, you need time, you need practice, you need dedication to study language and communication that serves you and your students. And to become good at cueing, you need a process, starting with a very solid foundation of instructional and active cues, studying verbs, body parts, pronouns and articles, directions and prepositions. So those are the 4 types of words for Instagram. Those are the 4 types of words that you need to know first: verbs, body parts, pronouns and articles, directions and prepositions. Yeah, and then to master your cues, you will have to explore various teaching styles, your voice, cueing formulas that you can match with your own style, that you can match with the theme or the outcome of your classes, and match with the needs of your students. That's the training for today. So if you want to learn more about this, you might have seen that enrollment for the English for Yoga Teachers course has closed. We've closed this, but if you're still interested and you want to join us last minute, send me a message so I can see what is possible for you. But I've got something else, because in July, we hosted the Teach Yoga and English course bundle. And we had a lot of great feedback on this and a lot of people asking if we were going to host it again. So I decided, let's do it. And it's going to be from the 20th to the 24th of September. So in about 2 weeks from now. And it's a 5-day course. So in contrast to the English for Yoga Teachers course, which is 4 months, this 5-day course will make you feel less committed. You can just easily get your way into developing your own voice, finding your own voice in English, learning all the vocabulary that you need to teach. Because in this 5-day course, I will introduce you to the most effective way to learn. You will get teaching practice, you will get conversation classes and pronunciation and fluency training. But you get access to the Yoga Vocabulary Builder, which gives you an interactive dictionary with all the types of categories that you need to know to teach yoga and English and learn interactively, because there's tests and quizzes, memory games that really match every style of learning personally. Makes it very personal. Now, this course, Teach Yoga and English course, is the 20th to the 24th of September. And you will have lifelong access to all the materials, to updates. And if we run it again in the future, you can just hop on and do it again. So there's really, or you only have to pay for it once and you've got access forever. If you sign up before the 12th of September, so that's next Monday, is that right? Let me double check if that's right. Yeah, next Monday, if you sign up before next Monday, you get $69 off. So I think it's a really, really great way to develop your voice, invest in your professional development, learn all the vocabulary that you need to know, and feel confident cueing your students so that you can invest in your professional development, but low key, because the course is only 5 days. However, you have access to everything forever, especially the Yoga Vocabulary Builder, which I know will be very useful for you. And we had one student last time, she called it the Disneyland for yoga teachers. And that's a very big compliment, but I also know that for people that want to really master their cues, feel confident in their communication, feel confident in the way that they speak on the mat and off the mat, this is really, really beneficial for you. So check that out. We close enrollment next Monday too. So you've got 5 more days. Check it out. $69 off. And it's from the 20th to the 24th of September. Yeah, any questions? Send me a message. I'm going to check in the Facebook group if we had questions coming in. Here on Instagram, let me know if you have questions too. Nothing that I see there. So for now, build on your foundational cues, instructional and active cues, by studying verbs, pronouns and articles, body parts, and directions. And if you want to take it a step further, take the quiz to find out what your teaching style is. And based on that, decide the types of words that you need to know as well. For example, if you're a sensory explorer, you want to know a lot of language that describes physical sensations. If you are a technical master, you want to get really, really deep into alignment, prepositions, directions even more, and anatomical structures. Yeah, so have a look at what your style is. And if you're not sure what type of language to study from there, send me a message and I will help you as well. And like I said, enrollment for the Teacher in English course, 5-day course, 20th to the 24th of September, closes on Monday, next Monday, 12th of September. And if you enroll before Monday, you get $69 off. It's a really great way to hold yourself accountable for your professional development. Invest in something that's not too long, so you can actually do it in a very short time frame, but keep access to all the training and all the updates and my support forever after. Yeah. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Sending you lots of love, and I hope to see all of you next week for a weekly training on Wednesday. Same time and same place. See you later. Mwah.